Welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. It feels like an amazing reunion of incredible friends that I just feel so happy to see again, every one of you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for making the effort to come. And at this time, I would like to start the program off with a prayer from Walter's pastor and relative, Reverend Wilbert Richardson.
Let us bow in a moment of prayer. Our Father in heaven, our Lord and our Savior, Jesus Christ, it is again we come to this appointed place at this appointed time in memory of a dear friend. We want to thank you, O God, for the life that was led. We want to thank you for the smile, O God. We want to thank you for the laughter. We want to thank you for the jokes. God, we just thank you for everything. And, oh God, as we assemble ourselves, help us to be mindful that we celebrate this service for Brother Walter, but one day there'll be a celebration for us. Help us to be mindful and help us to be ready. Oh God, Walter just beat us to the finishing line, but help us when our time comes. We want to hear you say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. Come on now and enter into the joys of my kingdom, and I shall make you ruler over many things." We love you. We honor you. We lift you up. And it is in Jesus' name we pray this prayer. Amen, amen, and amen.
Walter's son, Walter Lacey, is going to now address us with a few words.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm a person of a very few words, so I'm going to be real brief. The Bible says that you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. And looking at all of the smiling faces and all of the people that are here, you can tell the kind of tree that my dad was by the fruit that he bared. For many years with him being here and traveling from here to Alabama and, him coming down, vice versa, it was always a wonder, how do you do it up there away from family, because he was always so family oriented. But the more that we came and the more that we got to know everybody, the more we realized that he had just as much family here as he had at home. So, I'd like to thank each and every one of y'all for being just that, a family. Not just a person that you worked with, but somebody that, mentored and you sold into each other's lives, made a difference in each other's lives. And things went about just like families do. So thank each and every one of y'all for being here today. Thank you for all of the times that y'all had and all of the stories that I got to hear about each and every one of y'all. Again, thank you.
Reverend, will you come back up and please preach to us? We need a good preaching.
Thank you, Sister Yule. Walter was my in-law. That's what the family said. And I didn't have anything to say about that, but accept it And what a fine in-law Walter was. Maybe he had no idea, or some things we are married into, we have no say-so about it. As far as me being an in-law. But he did have a say-so about who he called his pastor. And he called me his pastor. And what a good friend, what a good member Walter turned out to be. Now, they got a eulogy here. I'm not going to do a eulogy. I've been doing eulogies for some 40 years now. But Walter was my friend, and this is supposed to be a memorial service. And we had the eulogy in Alabama a few weeks ago. But I just want to talk about how I felt and about Walter. And there is a scripture, as Walter Jr. has said, as he looked around and see all these fine people, there is a scripture. And you are not here because Walter was a nobody. You are here because Walter made an impact in and on your lives. I know Angus born is worldwide and all over the United States and probably other nations that I don't know about, amen. You didn't just come for the food, but you came because Walter made an impact on your life. My wife and I, and Walter called Lorenzo, drove from Durham to Alabama to attend the services. And we ended up meeting more folk like Walter. Outgoing, happy, smiling. So whether they like it or not, we have adopted the folk in Alabama as our extended family, and I want them to know ain't nothing y'all can do about it. Thank you, sir. But there was something about Walter, and in the Paul's letter to the Galatian church, in the 5th chapter, around the 22nd verse, Galatians 5th chapter, around the 22nd verse and the 23rd verse, you'll find these words. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, temperance. Against such there is no law. And if I were to put a name or a subject or a title, which I'm not, but I got a question that I would like to ask each and every one of you. Have you any fruit? Then let it speak for you. Have you any fruit? Then let it speak for you. I don't care what mama say, daddy say, grandma, grandpa, Walter's fruit is speaking for him right now. Some of you got on an airplane to come here. Where you come from, I don't know. But some of you left your jobs. Come here where you work, I don't know. Some of you may have had the day off, rest day, but you are here. Walter's fruit is speaking for him right now. And I believe that what Walter would love to see in us is to allow our fruit to speak to somebody. That's why God put us here on this earth. He gave each and every one of us fruit. We have what we call fruit of the Spirit. Now, if you can't get nobody to take you to the doctor when you were sick, you might ought to check your fruit tree. Maybe you need to fertilize the roots. Maybe it needs to be trimmed. Maybe your meekness isn't where it ought to be. Maybe your gentleness isn't where it ought to be. Maybe you need to prune your tree. And what I mean by pruning your tree, all of us got some stuff in us that we need to get rid of. And Walter was one that when you saw him today, he was the same way tomorrow. He had a smile. I never seen him angry at nobody. There was something about the fruit that was in him that spoke for him. And in order to let that fruit speak for you, whether it be a pear tree, an apple tree, or a grapevine, or whatever, you got to stay connected. And I believe that Walter stayed connected. You have to stay connected dealing with folk. Y'all, somebody, I know this in the Baptist church or whole church, but somebody, if you know what I'm talking about, somebody ought to say amen. It takes a little something extra deep down on the inside, those of y'all that's supervisors, to deal with some folk. And Walter exhibited those characteristics. What did it say here? It says, love. Love. Then it's got joy. And it says peace. And then it says dealing with, he said, long suffering. I want to say that one again. Long suffering. You got to sure enough stay connected to the vine and have some long suffering fruit to deal with some folk. And guess what? Walter knew how to deal with folk. And guess what? He didn't get it on his own. It was because he knew how to stay connected to the vine. You see, some folk think they're connected to the vine until they get hot in the kitchen. Huh? I ain't going to put up with this no more. I'm going home. I'm going to take my spatula. I'm through with them. But Walter, you got to stay connected, to stay in the kitchen when it get hot. Now I said this wasn't gonna be no eulogy, and I'm finished. My wife, Diane Richardson, raise your hand, honey. She over there doing this right here. Okay, honey. All right. But I do have a few more things here that I want to say. Walter was one that he didn't only count his days, but he made his days count. Look around. Look around. He made his days count. And Walter loved what he was doing. Loved what he was doing. Loved his job. Don't too many folk love. I said love your job now. I ain't say go to work and enjoy. I said love your job. Love what you're doing. He loved it. He made his days count for something. And I gather to say that he made an impact on each and every one of us that sitting in here right now. And as I prepare to go to my seat, there's a song. I ain't gonna sing, honey. But it goes something like this. It says, may the work I've done speak for me. May the service I gave speak for me. May the love I've given speak for me. And my last thing that I want to ask again is, do you have any fruit? May God bless you, and may heaven continue to smile upon you. And Walter, if you're cooking in that celestial kitchen, we love you. Rest in peace.
I consider you a sage, and I'm not talking about what goes in a turkey. You are such a wise man. Show me some of that wisdom about the time we're living in right now, Walter.
For one thing, nothing is permanent. Care for people. Let them know that you care. Share from your heart. Be genuine. And you know what? Extend a helping hand.
So, Walter, you know, I always do this sound palette where I ask you to pair like a Thanksgiving dinner or something with a piece of music. Do you have anything in mind?
Yes, Alice's Restaurant.
There's a little meaning behind that.
Yes, it is. The lovely Mrs. Alice Ewer, and it's Alice's Restaurant.
It will always be Alice's Restaurant, won't it?
Yes, it will.
In mere moments, one of these Iron Chefs will be pitted against our challenger, who thirsts to discover our secret ingredient and enter the heat of battle here in Kitchen Stadium.
Today's challenger knew as a teenager he was destined to cook professionally. He had a natural passion for traditional American cuisine and was soon serving up spectacular dishes with a Southern flavor. In 1997, he was the first African American to receive the coveted 5-star Chef of the Year award from the International Restaurant Guild. Today, he's the executive chef at the Angus Barn in Raleigh, North Carolina. The chairman welcomes Chef Walter Royal.
Chef Royal, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
You are creative and clever, but are you ready for the pressure cooker that is Kitchen Stadium?
We're quite ready.
Very good.
Crack,
Start again.
crack when you're ready. Crack black pepper honey.
Years ago, when Walter won on Iron Chef America, he actually created this black pepper honey to go with the mystery ingredient, which was ostrich.
And after that, Van started beekeeping. And I incorporated herb honey into the cracked black pepper. It's perfect for everything. Cracked black pepper honey, made with Van's local honey, is wonderful. On pork chops, grill your chops, right on, finishing them on a medium grill. Outstanding on chicken. Now, when you glaze the honey on the chicken, it gives it a wonderful charred look. Some may say burnt, but it's a charred look. Absolutely delicious.
Well, also, it is great on vegetables. It is great on sweet potato, and that's mashed potato. Sorry, and it's also great on sweet potato. And guess what? Guess what, Walter? Guess what? You can also just eat it for medicine.
Yeah.
And that's a wrap.
Came back, had a wait over at RDU. And I was reading a Julia Child's cookbook, sitting in the airport waiting for my flight to get back to Atlanta.
Now, is this your first trip abroad?
Yeah.
Okay.
To get back to Atlanta. And this lady, Jenny Fitch, walked up and she said, "Hi, I'm Jenny Fitch. Are you a chef?" I went, "Well, I just graduated from Natalie Dupree's cooking school. We just got back from Spain." She said, "You know Natalie Dupree?" "Yes, ma'am." She said, "You know Natalie Dupree?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I do." I said, "I'm headed back to Atlanta to pack up and go home." She said, "You're not leaving for Atlanta yet." She said, "I own the village of the Farrington. I own the Farrington House restaurant, my husband and I. And we have Edna Lewis working for us out there." And I went, holy God. I mean, Edna was my icon at that point. And she said, "We'll get you on a flight, another flight." I went, I met Edna, hung out with Edna for 2 days. Meanwhile, Jenny had called Natalie. Natalie had just told her what a prodigy she felt I would be. Edna loved me. They offered me a job. And of course, I took it. Flew back to Alabama, packed up everything, came back, went to work at Farrington, picked Edna's brain. I mean, Edna was an angel amongst us.
Now, tell us about Edna Lewis. Now, who is she, and how did you first find out about her?
Oh, Edna has 6 publications, 6 cookbooks. Her first cookbook, the Edna Lewis cookbook, I've cooked everything in it more than once. And she's a striking was a striking older black woman, but just elegant. And I would read her books and read her recipes and go, whoa. And there was nobody else like her. There was no black Southern chefs that I knew of at that time, except Edna. And God smiled on me when He gave me the opportunity to work with her. There was no way in the world I was turning it down. I had met Edna, then I met Jenny. I had 2 great women. And Jenny Fitch, she was a wealthy Chapel Hill woman. You know, they owned Fitch Lumber Company, Fitch Stockyard in Siler City. Just say, and her passion, once again, with all of her fortune, was to bring something to Chapel Hill. And she wanted an English inn. And it is a true Michelin 5-star destination.
Okay.
But working with Edna and I would sit up sometime 2 o'clock in the morning, just going talking about things. Her crab cakes, the best recipe on this planet. Her wild asparagus salad. Her Vidalia onion soup. You know, just things, once again. Natalie had given me the canvas with the first coat of paint on it. Jenny put the next coat. Edna refined the painting. and I say to people, especially my northern friends, oh, you have to come to New York, and you have to eat here, and you have to eat here, and you have to do this. Come to Chicago, you have to eat at Trotter's, and you have to do this. Let me tell you about Mr. Trott. Mr. Trott is cooking those pig feet that I grew up eating. Mr. Trott is learning about collard greens and mustard greens and turnip greens. That has sustained African Americans for 200 plus years. For a while there, everything, and this is a speech I'm giving to people, for a while there, everything that came through this country came through New Orleans, through Mississippi, through Alabama, through Georgia, before it got to the north. So don't you think that our southern aristocrats, travel to Europe and stuff a lot more than you northern aristocrats. Our southern aristocrats, in which they're white and it was black aristocrats, the cotton, the moonshine that you're drinking, all of this stuff was manufactured in the South. We're getting it to you to the north. Do you understand? 80% of the black population left the South and migrated north. So don't give me this that New York's food is better than Mississippi or Louisiana food. Don't give me that your food is better than Alabama food. When we put the show on, our food was presented and great taste. We put our best apparel on and we pull out our starched tablecloths. I have a lot of my grandmother's china and crystal to this day. So please don't tell me. Now, yes, it was a lot of poor people in the South, but there was lots of educated people. And if a black family saw something that they wanted, they would maybe save a year, but they would get it. You know? My grandparents had a farm, and it was something that I loved. I wanted to be a farmer, but my daddy said, no, that's not going to work. So he didn't want me cooking either, but as I grew into it and they saw that it could be a great career, it was okay. Growing up in rural Alabama, there was nothing but barbecue, fried chicken, and stuff like that. So I needed to learn. I needed to be refined. I needed to get my hands on other good food. Not saying that the chicken and the barbecue was not good, but it was more to Southern cuisine than that. And Natalie had written books. Natalie was traveled, and I am Southern throughout, and I love the Southern cuisine, and I wanted to weave that ribbon and show the Southern cuisine is not just all heavy, all-day cook. Southern cuisine can be as delicate as French or anything else because of what we grow and how we have and the harvesting and the time. All of those years of working with really great and surrounding yourself by and with good people, we did it. We have showed that Southern cuisine is as good a cuisine as anything else in the world.
And the winner is Chef Royal.
A moment of victory, a moment of excellence. Angus Barn executive chef Walter Royal named Iron Chef in 2006. And as he told Tar Heel traveler Scott Mason 2 years later, cooking was his passion.
Rare steak with a slightly warm center.
The Angus Barn. Beef eaters hate it. Walter Royals hate it.
You have to love it, live it, and breathe it.
And savor it.
Just a little salt and pepper.
He's a seasoned chef. 13 years at the Angus Barn.
Is this your calling?
Yeah, I really think it is.
He grew up in small-town Alabama.
I played football, went to college on a football scholarship and was injured.
So what to do? Well, he thought of his grandmother and all those big family meals she cooked. and eventually decided he wanted to cook too.
Every weekend, every opportunity, we got together and we cooked and we ate.
Chef Walter Royal.
Chef Royal's reputation earned him an appearance on the TV show Iron Chef America.
It was horrifying, it was delightful, and I was a nervous wreck.
The competition is heating up.
I made myself a promise. I wasn't going to swear. I was going to finish my 5 courses, and I wasn't going to cut myself.
He finished the 5 courses and did not cut himself.
The swearing went out of the window.
Walter won the competition.
Chef Royal.
And we did. We won.
He has won a place at the table and compliments to the chef.
Thank you. And when you see people that have waited all year to come to the Angus barn during the holidays, that makes you feel good. And it pushes you to work harder to make sure every plate is perfect. And it's a good feeling to know that you're making memories that someone will carry with them for the rest of their life.
Just one of the kindest people ever, too. Walter Royal passed away at the age of 67.
Something about his voice, too, as comforting as his food, I bet. He was a fixture at the Angus barn, having started there in 1997.
Since the news of Royal's passing broke yesterday, the tributes, they've been pouring in, and his reputation in the kitchen was second to none. But today, those that loved him and worked with him describe him as warm, thoughtful, and generous with his time and his knowledge. The Angus barn
just gonna miss him.
Has been a staple
so much
in the Triangle since it opened in 1960.
His presence, his voice, all of it.
But if you ask owner Van Yor, the real institution was the man they called Chef. Today, his table and his chair sit empty.
He was just like a rock. I mean, I could always count on Walter. If I needed something done, I knew if I called Walter, there was no doubt it was going to get done. It was going to get done perfectly.
Walter Royal, who led the kitchen as Angus Barn's first ever executive chef for over a quarter century, passed away Monday at the age of 67. Yor says his warmth and dedication to helping others learn the craft was legendary.
And he mentored them and just really taught them life lessons, more than just cooking, like life lessons for the entire time that he was here.
Royal's family remembering him too. First cousin Wanda Royal Brooks said it all started with a dream. She recalls Walter cooking meals at a restaurant up the street from where they grew up in Alabama.
He followed his passion. I just say that because not everybody does. And he did. And with that, he poured the love into it. And I think that's why he was so successful in what he did.
A man seemingly larger than life, whose career led him across the country, from humble beginnings to a victory on Iron Chef, to a restaurant, now struggling to imagine a future without him.
The sign of a great leader is how you've trained people to follow in your footsteps, which Walter has done. But he is going to be so very missed.
And Yor says in the last day her phone has been flooded with messages and remembrances, and she says through it all, through 26 years, he never got too big, he never lost a sense of self, he was always just that model of dedication. We're live in Raleigh tonight. Sean Coffey, ABC 11. Eyewitness News. Joel.
We will remember his meals, and more importantly, we will remember the man, Sean Coffey, on the life and death of Chef Walter Royal. Sean, thank you.
When you're down and troubled and you need a helping hand, and nothing is going right. Close your eyes and think of me, and soon I will be there to brighten up even your darkest night. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yeah, baby, to see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, now all you got to do is call, and and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. You've got a friend. If the sky above you should turn dark and full of clouds, and that old north wind should begin to blow, keep your head together and call my name out loud now. Soon I'll be knocking upon your door. You just call up my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running. Oh yes, I will see you again. Winter, spring, summer, or fall, yeah. All you got to do is call, and I'll be there, yeah, yeah, yeah. Hey, ain't it good to know that you've got a friend? People can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you. Well, they'll take your soul if you let them. Oh yeah, but don't you let them. You just call out my name, and you know wherever I am, I'll come running to see you again. Oh baby, don't you know about winter, spring, summer, or fall? Hey, now all you've got to do is call. Lord, I'll be there, yes I will. You've got a friend. You've got a friend, yeah. Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Ain't it good to know you've got a friend? Oh yeah, yeah, you've got a friend.
Kind of go a little off script because I didn't realize that we're going to be actually able to see some of the back of behind the scenes things with the Iron Chef America, and I remember how nervous Chef was when we went down and they practiced what they were going to try to come up with on the fly. And I remember Chef, when you see Chef coming down, walking down that smoky ramp on Iron Chef America, they did that take like 10 times. And Van and myself and Steve are in the green room. Christopher's getting ready to go on. And I remember the first few times they asked that first question, and the gentleman asked Chef, he said, how are you? He said, we're, ready to go, or whatever he says. His voice was cracking so bad. We were just so nervous for him because they kept on doing that take over and over again. And if you watch it, how nervous he was. But what was unbelievable about Chef, and one of his unbelievable attributes, was he was grace under pressure. And as soon as they were able to get those ingredients, they were able to start turning those pots and pans on and getting everything rolling, that was it. He had a stature that was different than everybody else, regardless if it was a celebrity chef or people running around doing everything else. He had that grace and he had that determination that he's gonna do this. This is his kitchen. This is what he does. So it was just an unbelievable memory. I do remember the last part of that as well was we could not tell anyone that we won that day. So Van and Steve had to take Christopher home that night in New York, and so it was just me, Jules, Alan, and Chef in New York by ourselves. Can't talk about the fact that they just won Iron Chef America. Well, we see the gentleman who's think his name was Kevin, that interviews everyone. And literally, we saw him in the elevator. He was going up to the bar to have some late night drinks and whatnot. Walter was such at ease. This huge thing was off his shoulders. The last thing I remember about that night was the fact that the gentleman that's on the TV show told us at some point in time, I don't know when New York City has a cutoff time, but he just looked at us and said, I got to be on set in 2 hours. So we were relieved. It was such a big event, and it was such a great time. And I was so proud of Walter and the team. But, life is not a journey to get to the finish line. The journey is the places in between. And what Walter brought was his Walterisms, the things that Walter did, his compassion and his wit and his humor. And if you've been lucky enough to work with him, as most of management team have for over 25 years, you've had good days, you've had chaotic days, you've had long meetings and aha moments. But when it comes down to, Walter was such an integral part of not only our management team, but our AB team, and allowed us to uphold all the standards that the Angus Barn lives for and commits to our customers and commits to our staff. And allowed us to do things like our captain's table, our second wine cellar room, Bay 7, and also here that you see here. Chef was everywhere with us. But right now I'd like to recognize our managers and manager assistants that work here at the barn. If you please raise and be recognized as his amazing team and family.
Please, guys, stand.
Thank you. Chef had been executive chef. You have to wear a lot of hats, and Chef by far did that. He was a chef, a teacher. He was a counsel. He was therapist, public speaker, butcher, baker. He said never a candlestick maker, but I bet you he would have done a great job. And sometimes he was a celebrity chef. But whatever he was doing and whatever he was talking to you, he did it with humility, compassion, and empathy. Walter loved his family, and we're so happy that y'all came down today to do this again with us, the other family. I remember just coming on into management in about 2004, and Walter and I were on a road trip. Walter was going to be a celebrity guest judge at an event. And Walter and I were on the road for about 3.5 hours, and the first 3.5 hours, all we talked about was family. His growing up, I grew up in upstate New York, and him growing up in Alabama, and everyone from the whole family tree to the old dynamics, and Chef was just an open book. And from there on, just started this unbelievable relationship that there's nothing that he could say or I could say that wouldn't drive us away from the goal, is to just make sure that we're taking care of our guests, we're taking care of our people, and we're going to do it as ladies and gentlemen, and that's what Chef did. He loved his vendors like his friends. All of our great people that we built relationships with, those were Walter's people. He loved his chef friends, his chef buddies. There's too many here to thank, but he loved getting out and doing new things with his buddies and doing events, charity events where he and a few others would cook. He absolutely loved doing that. He absolutely loved our customers. His glow in the room when they walked through that kitchen and saw Chef, and this is before celebrity chefs were around. They walked through where Chef just would be on a grill or doing something, and the next thing you know, it just becomes everybody wanted to know, hey, how do I make my cake rise, or how do I make X and Y? And Chef had to always be on the fly and always did it. He wouldn't let you leave without a one-liner or a one-zinger or something to let you say, I'm Walter, thank you so much for coming. And they left with a smile all the time. He always had his sense of humor, his wit, his eye rolls and face rolls. He can throw you a look. He can throw you a look across the room, and you would know exactly what was going on. But regardless of what it was, he loved his Angus Barn kitchen. He loved his Angus Barn family. from valet to phones to custodial to the butchers in the back. Chef was just an open book to everyone, and there's nobody else like him. But I do know that the torch is passed, and his crew, his tightest crew, the ones that I'd like to come up now are the guys that not only have been with a chef for a long time, but will continue to, just like you heard about Natalie Dupree, to pass that torch along to our family and our guests. I'd like to call up George Hernandez. Dia Sukidi. Adam Kosika. Brian West. Mo Mohammed Dawood. Michael Carroll. Julie Rajeski. And last but not least, Scott James.
Thank you, Jimmy. Would the entire kitchen team, past and present, please stand up and be recognized? How about a round of applause for those folks? Thank you so much, guys. As well as these 7 individuals behind me: George, Dia, Adam, Brian, Michael, Muhammad, and Julie. One more time, please. One more time. That's right. They are the ones that were working in the trenches with Walter day in and day out. And this is the team that will carry on because of Walter. I am honored to be speaking on behalf of these 7 individuals, our kitchen management team, the entire kitchen department, Angus Barn team, and to the friends and family of Walter J.L. Royal. It's very easy to celebrate the life of a man who has impacted so many people. He was blessed with a devilish smile, charisma, and a legendary sense of humor. Right. A proud Southern man with a farmer's heart and a resume that would humble the best of them. With that farmer's heart, he continued to find a way to grow things. A kitchen is a place where planting seeds is still necessary, tending to things, watching them grow. We are the product of 27 years of care, being tended to. Some of us are younger, and some of us are a bit longer in the tooth, but all cared for with the same passion. The growth and development, not as just team members, but as daughters, sons, wives, husbands, mothers, and fathers. I believe at the core of our chef, Walter Royal, was empathy, a virtue that all other virtues cease to exist without. Empathy is a quality of character that can change the world. As the Reverend might say, love thy neighbor. Empathy is one of humankind's prized possessions. Acts of kindness and consideration are inevitable when a person can step into someone else's shoes. Being able to see someone as a reflection of oneself, that's who Chef was to me and so many of us. He loved watching people grow by nurturing their spirit with vision that would see over the horizon. In Southern hospitality, I'm going to say that again, Southern hospitality, and a moral compass that never wavered. He showed us all the way, all of us, wholeheartedly invested in the cultivation of ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
You didn't think you were going to get away without me getting up here. So, first, let me show you. This is the jacket he wore on Iron Chef America and won on Iron Chef America. We are going to frame this sucker and put it up in his kitchen behind his chef's table, which will become the Walter Royal chef table, with a plaque that honors him. So, thank you everybody for coming. And I'm going to have to read a little bit, so you won't see me weeping here, but first, to his family, to his son Walter and Tammy, his siblings, his cherished grandson Walter Jr., a profound thank you for sharing him with us for the last 27 years. He used every moment here at the Angus Barn to create a legacy that will never, never be forgotten. To all of those out here today that worked with him before he came to us and helped mold this champion, thank you. From Edna Lewis to Ben and Karen Barker to Jenny Fitch to Rick Owen to Bill Smith, to his fellow chefs, to Matt Kelly and Jason Smith, Joe Lambrazo, Julia McGovern, to Gonza, there are so many out there, Sean Fowler and Todd Crisco and David Godeski, okay? Mama Dip and her daughter Spring that's out there, and so many more. Thank you for fueling his passion and keeping it burning all these years. Most to our Angus Barn family, to all of you past and present, thank you for being such unbelievably caring co-workers and teammates. We were truly blessed to have this incredible mentor guiding us for over a quarter of a century. We were the lucky ones. Not only did we get to be with him during his prime, but when life kicked back at him, we got a ringside seat to watch a champion persevere through major physical challenges, never giving up, but instead raising the bar and rising up. He had a bigger than life presence, always thoughtful and kind, many times very soft-spoken, but sometimes that unmistakable bellow and laugh, that his jowls would just vibrate. You know, I can't do it, but it'd make it happen. Often a teddy bear, but get him fired up, and he would kind of turn grizzly bear. This would lead to some of, as Jim was saying, his Walterisms, those famous sayings. I once watched him get fired up, walk into a not-so-productive kitchen, and get that face and that look and then those words. And I can't imitate him like he could do it, but he looked at that kitchen staff and he said, if you're leaning, then you better start cleaning. Move it. Or he'd look at them all standing there, I could take you all out with one bullet. Get busy. And then, of course, for that employee situation that he didn't totally agree with, I remember him one time, he looked at me and said, that's not our problem. That's his baby to burp. Or this was one I heard often. I am a Christian man, but he is such an ass. Most of it was soft-spoken, but fire him up. And he also had those nicknames. He had nicknames for everybody. Lots of you guys that are out there now. I don't know how, but Tuttle was Tuttle Wax. Scott James became Scottie Pippen. Jill Highsmith was Jilly Bean. Julie was Julie Newmar. And they went on. Adam, Lord Dia, Ray Ray, Emma, Christy, Mamba, Mo Baby, and Jimmy. And of course, Van was always Madam. Not sure where they all came from, but it always made you smile when you heard it. When Walter gave you a shout out, all was right in the world. And he never took himself too seriously. Always ready for a laugh and a smile. I can't tell you how many times over these years that I would see him come out in a full regalia costume. Now you had to see what this 6'3" man, this towering black man coming out in a Gumby costume, or as the Easter Bunny, or as Santa Claus, okay? It was a sight to behold. He taught me about Southern cuisine. He taught me about shrimp and grits and showed me how truly delicious fried chicken could be. I didn't know what a collard green was until Walter showed me. In fact, it was exactly 26 years ago today, that Walter catered Van and my wedding with the finest Southern cuisine this Italian New York Yankee could have ever imagined. And like Van's dad, the late Thad Ure Jr., you could be in a room, you could be in a kitchen and not see him and not hear him, but you knew he was there. You knew it. A presence, a force to be reckoned with. You know, that's the way it is with the great ones, and Walter was a great one. To his crew, he was so proud of all of you. He loved challenging you to be better. I could constantly hear him saying things like, "We know better, we can do this, we got this, we got your back." With Walter, it was always we. Not me or you, not I, always we. Always teaching the power of teamwork and being involved in something much bigger than ourselves. He loved all of you, and you guys loved him right back. You demonstrated it every day in this restaurant by giving him the respect, compassion, and hard work that he asked for and deserved. And that is something that is special and doesn't happen in many places anymore. And Van and I are so very grateful to all of you for that. I would be remiss if I did not take a moment when we talk about care and compassion to recognize Julie Rajetsky. Julie, stand for a minute. Where are you? This woman went so far beyond anyone's expectations. She wasn't just there, she was always there for Walter whenever he needed any kind of assistance or anything. Jules, there are no words. Thank you. He lived his life with pride and humility, with love and kindness, and with courage and character. It has been said that a great soul serves everyone all the time. A great soul never dies. A great soul brings us together again and again. Walter was a great soul. I will miss his leadership and laughter. I will miss his spirit and kindness. But most of all, I will miss his love and friendship. So here's to you, my friend, for a team well built, for a job well done, and for a life well lived. I know the Lord is eating a whole lot better with Walter up there on the job. Please, folks, join me in giving him a well-deserved applause that can be heard from heaven. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
About 2 weeks before Walter passed, we had the opportunity to take him out to dinner with a couple of his chefs. And we all went around the room and around the table, and we said, if you could have 1 hour with any person not in your family, living or dead, who would it be? And we all went around the table and said our person. And it got to Walter, and he goes, definitely Miss Betty. So I stayed up all last night, and I really didn't know what to do, but an angel's voice came to me and told me to write this poem for you. One sec. I felt the warmth in his heart and the glow in his eyes, and then I saw his smile. I thought to myself, Hold on.
Take a breath.
Hold on. I felt the warmth in his heart and the glow in his eyes. And then I saw his smile. And I thought to myself, well, he may work out for just a little while. And then I heard his laughter. And wow, that booming voice. And then I knew right then and there he was the number one first choice. But Miss Betty Shugart had to approve to pass the final test. He had to impress the master and show Miss Betty his best. He treated her like a princess, allowing her to have the chair. They became dear and special friends. They were the perfect pair. Together, they ran that kitchen. They cleaned, they cooked, they planned. Many times the road was bumpy, but they walked it hand in hand. When we lost Miss Betty, we knew we had lost so very much. But Walt, he rose up like a king and gave a strong and healing touch. Walter's firm yet humble way, not many could devise, but when he needed to right a wrong, his voice could not disguise. A great student, a great leader, Walt, he broke the mold. And no matter what life handed him, he truly won the gold. He played the cards life dealt him and never lost his pace. He handled life's adversities with dignity and grace. God will help us through these days, for often in our pain, a peace will come with sweet surprise we sought before in vain. He's only gone ahead of us, a strength we all will find, because he will live each day in us, our hearts, our souls, our minds. Thank you. And now we are going to have a solo from Reverend Anissa Thompson Little.
Amen. God bless you. Somebody mentioned earlier about grace. And how many of you know that God's amazing grace will get all of you through this? Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught and grace. My fears relieved. How precious deep that grace appear. The hour I first believed. I believe he'd like this verse. Through me, just toils and snares I have already come. 'Tis grace has brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home.
So Walter was my fashion savant. He would say, "Hi, Smith, why are you wearing those patent leather shoes after Labor Day?" Or he'd say, "Come on, you know, white's not appropriate after Memorial Day." Well, today, Walter, I am not wearing black for you because this is a celebration. So let's all close our eyes for a minute. Let's breathe. Since May 22nd, we've been sorting through our emotions. We are all tangled up. In this next moment of silence to yourself, tell Walter one thing you want him to hear from you. Whether it's thank you, or I'll never forget, or I love you, Dad, or I will pay it forward, or yes, Chef. Let him know your thought. Now let our Heavenly Father take over. Feel Jesus taking your hand and placing it in Walter's hand. Feel the warmth. We are never going to be alone because we are connected to Walter by the Holy Spirit. He lives in us. Dear God, take care of our friend, father, grandfather, brother, uncle, cousin, and leader. Help us to know that it's not the stars we see in the sky, but openings in heaven where the love of Walter pours through and shines down upon us to let us know he is happy. Until we meet again, Iron Angel. Until we meet again. Amen.
time to be with us and remember Walter and celebrate his life. Please enjoy and continue. We have more snacks and everything, but we so appreciate you being here. Maestro, music.